So we've come quite a way. We've done quite a lot of work on the BM so far. All the components have now been refreshed and refurbished and ready to go back onto the car. The next thing we're going to do is drive shafts. So I'm going to go through how to split down the drive shaft, how to refurbish it, clean it up, new boot seals or rubbers, and put it all back together.
So now we need to remove the end cap from the drive shaft. By removing this end, I'm going to use a screwdriver and a hammer to knock it off. Now don't worry about damaging the cap as long as you don't snap the cap, because we can repair that at the end when we replace that component once it's all been cleaned up. But just some gentle tapping all the way around until the cap pops off. Now that the end cap's been removed, we can access the circlip. You can see the circlip there. I'll show you a close-up of it in a moment. So yeah, now we can see that circlip, and we need some circuit pliers that open outwards. Very important that you use those circlip pliers that open outwards to then open the circlip whilst holding it so that it doesn't spring away. Don't want to lose that part. Always have a parts bin or parts holder available to store these small components so that you don't lose them. Now that the circlip's removed, we need to knock the end of the drive shaft off. Generally get a hammer and some gentle taps. Now that that's off, we can remove the rubber boot from the other side. Now that the rubber boot's removed, I can clean the components up, a little bit of wire brushing. And next, I'm going to wash off all the excess grease. Now, not everyone's got a parts washer. Bit of paraffin or diesel usually works to treat to remove the grease. Once the grease is all gone, I can dry it all off, being careful not to disassemble the component or lose any of the balls inside the drive shaft.
So now that we've taken off the end, we've cleaned off the ends, we've got our old rubber boot off both ends. Always remember which end goes on which way around. So on this one I have a green mark on the outside, so I know that it goes on in that orientation. But before I can do that, I need to put a new rubber boot on this side. So we'll undo that, start to slide on the rubber boot close to the end, put it back in the vise. And now, because we've cleaned off and pulled out most of the grease, I've got some new high velocity grease to go in there. So squeeze that in liberally. You've got a full packet for this, so basically use the full packet. Just float that round a bit. Get some in the other end, make sure it doesn't fall out. Like when you're doing your toothpaste, squeeze it all out. And Once you've got that out, we can put the rubber boot up against it. Now there is a position mark for your rubber boot. You can see where there's a change in the steel there on the drive shaft. So that's where the rubber boot needs to sit. And then within my kit of rubber boots, I've got some new clips. So I'll be fitting those new clips as well. So we've got a small one and a long one. Now you can see the small one is way too big, and the big one is also going to be way too big, so we're going to have to trim that down a bit. So I'll basically use the old boot to get a gauge of how much I need, and then I can trim some of that back. So that there, I can basically lose that much of it. So I'll go and cut that down. Okay, so now that that's trimmed, we can put that on. I'm going to try and get as tight as possible. And there's 3 grab parts there that are going to grab it together. So we'll pull that round as tight as we can get it and clip those in. Then hold it clipped in, and this is where you need a special pair of pliers, which I will put in the comments a link to what style and size pliers these are, in case you need them yourself. And you basically pull that together, which is tightening the rubber and holding it on to the drive shaft end. So we'll do exactly the same for the smaller clip. And once we've done the smaller clip, this side is complete. Feed it round again as tight as I can get it. Make sure all 3 prongs are in, hold it in position, get my pair of pliers, start to pull. Make sure that end isn't in the way. And there you go, all tight. Now we can start on the other end. So flip that round. And for this, I've got one with a pre-made end, so that when I put my end back on, that will mount into there and pick up on the holes in the way that the old one did. Now this end might be a bit more tricky, so make sure you put a bit of grease on the inside of your rubber. And my personal trick is to put a screwdriver through, so that as it's going on, you can see where we've got this bit jutting out, we've got to get over. So stick your screwdriver through without puncturing the rubber, and that will take it over that edge. So as you then push and get one edge over, you can feed it round. Just keep going round until it's passed. Once it's passed, big push down. Again, you can see the locator there. That's the locator for this end, so when we pull it back, once we've got it all fitted, it'll sit nicely there. But before we do that, we need to put the end on. Again, remembering I've got a green dot on the outside edge, so slide that over. A little bit of gentle persuasion. Now you'll know when you're in the correct position because you'll see the ring for the circlip. So we've got our circlip from earlier and our circlip pliers. Now open that up and feed it on. Once it's over, just make sure you listen for a click. And there we go, it's clicked on. It's okay for that to move, but we know that that is securely locked in place. So again, same as the other boot, we've cleaned all this up, so we need to make sure that we replenish the grease. It must be high velocity grease. Now this grease came with this kit, so I know it's the correct grease. Again, like a toothbrush, we're going to lather it on around the centre of the shaft and leave enough to do the other side before you put the end cap on. So I'll put some in there as well. Save a little bit for the other side. Make sure now that your holes line up. Push that back up again so it's in position. So I know I'm in the correct position now. I know that my holes are lined up. Again, a little bit of gentle persuasion to ensure that that cap is located. And all we've got left to do now is put the end clip back on. Same as before, measure how much you think you'll need. I'll cut that much off. Okay, so as you can see, the clip's now on, rubber boot's now on. All that's left to do is our nice cleaned up casting plate or end cap. Line up the holes, slot it on. Little gentle persuasion, and as I said earlier, when you were knocking it off with the screwdriver, and just tap that round and make it flush. And there we have it, one completed drive shaft to accompany the other completed drive shaft. That should be the last components for refurbishment before we build it all back up.
So previously to this video I have done the brakes, so repainted, now a shiny yellow colour, refitted all of the rubber components. I've also removed the old shock absorbers completely, which required ripping half the interior out of the back to access the nuts, and resprayed the new shock absorbers ready for fitment. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching.